everybody, it's Anna. So I wanted to share with you a preview of what I plan to preach this Sunday. From the lectionary, I'm looking once again at the Gospel of Luke, and today's story is a little weird. It basically shows the Sadducees, which was a group of religious leaders, challenging Jesus with a really strange conundrum. So basically, they go to Jesus and say, what happens if a woman marries a man and then he dies, leaving her childless? And according to the law, that means his brother has to marry her, and so then he dies, and then another brother marries her, and then he dies. And so basically 7 brothers end up marrying this woman and dying, all leaving no children, and then she dies. And so the Sadducees are saying, so in the resurrection, which is, after they come back to life, who will be married to the woman? Okay, so it's a bizarre story. It's a bizarre challenge. The scriptures tell us that these guys don't even believe in the resurrection. So really, it's an argument designed to make resurrection look foolish and to try to make Jesus look foolish. They're trying to show Jesus they're more clever than he is, right? So I thought this story really connects to the challenge of the 5 of Swords. So the 5 is the point of challenge in the tarot story, the tarot directory, and swords are connected to the mind. So the image shows a man with swords he has collected. He's been in several duels and he's bested many people. He's pretty proud of himself. He's smirking like, yeah, I'm pretty good at this. And he's sort of taunting others to come and take him on, right? So this guy seems to be pretty impressed with himself, but we see in the clouds in this tarot spread there up here, it looks very stormy and troubled. This tells us that even though he's winning these duels, this is not actually a victory. There's something challenging and problematic about this situation. So I think of this card as the challenge the mind hits when it is almost like it's being drawn into drama or distraction. So basically, this guy, the reason he's provoking people, right, is he has an insecure mind. His mind feels like he's not very good. He's not good enough. So he's trying to soothe his mind by besting other people. That's a person that is in their drama and they want to get you involved in their drama. And either they want you to join them in their drama, which is one version of this, or they want to fight with you, right? Because they're feeling angsty, right? So this guy is feeling accomplished because he's using his angst to win his victories, but basically he's accomplishing nothing because there's nothing that can be accomplished in this debate, right? We're not doing anything. We're just arguing ideas. And the success of this card, I always say, are these 2 people who are walking away. Basically, they recognize this is just a hook. It's just some drama. They've got other things to do. They've got other things to focus on. So when you look at this debate the Sadducees have set up for Jesus, it's basically getting Jesus to defend resurrection, to explain resurrection, to get into a theoretical debate around something. But Jesus, like these fellas, doesn't take the bait. He just says, this doesn't make sense. This resurrection isn't, the way the world works is not the way things work in the spiritual realm. You're just trying to cause problems, right? You're just trying to get me into this debate, which really ends up being fruitless. So in this instance in Luke, basically it's showing us that they're trying to trip him up. They want him to be foolish and to be brought into their debate. But this doesn't have to be the way things are. There are genuinely people in the world whose minds are so fraught and so concerned that they have the need to constantly prove themselves. And they're debating something that matters to them. Their minds really are attached to a certain way of seeing things. And so when other people see it differently, they feel the need to convince you that they are right. They are right. That's the sign, again, of a mind that's not feeling very secure. So if you can recognize that and you can support your own mind in becoming more secure, you accomplish walking away from this moment, right? So the key, of course, is to help the mind understand what it's here for, understand it's got the genius of the intuition behind it. It has a purpose, it has a focus, and it cannot be distracted by this mind who is feeling insecure. So yeah, that's part of the journey, right? Between the mind and intuition is developing a relationship in which the mind does know the voice of its own genius. It knows the voice of its own compass. It recognizes it. And so it's got better things to do than to debate with somebody, right? So I think Jesus is like, yeah, I've got other things to do than talking about this theoretical person, a woman, and 7 husbands, and whether they're going to be married in the next world. Also, something to think about is they're arguing, a nonsensical story, but also they're arguing about a structure which doesn't apply. Jesus is saying this structure of marriage applies in the physical realm, because in the physical realm, we need to have some kind of structures, especially in establishing households and creating, having children, and, creating a legacy of your genealogy, right? That's a concern for this world, where resources have to be negotiated in some way. But in the spiritual realm, we don't have to negotiate resources. It doesn't matter. We don't have to keep these certain special bonds which are establishing the flow of resource, because resource is infinite, right? So this idea of like letting go, the structures you're investing in are temporary. So the same is true with everything in the physical realm. Everything in the physical realm is temporary. So they can be very helpful. Tools can be helpful. Ideas, paradigms can be helpful. But they're only helpful in as much as they are serving whatever you were trying to do, right? If you need to, build a bridge, maybe you need hammer and nails and a saw, but maybe you don't need a corkscrew, right? The corkscrew is good for other things, but right now that's not a tool that you need. So recognizing what it's here to do and what tools matter to it, and feeling comfortable with its tools so it doesn't have to argue this point. So Jesus is concerned. This is coming after this other conversation about how widows are to be taken care of in the church, right? There are widows, and that's actually why the law is set up in the way it's set up as the Sadducees are describing it, which is if a woman is widowed, and she has no children, then the next brother is required to marry her. And that's because this woman is dependent, in this culture, is dependent on a man, right? And she doesn't have children yet, so the children will not take care of her. So if they don't marry her, if the brother doesn't marry her, she becomes despondent. And that's what Jesus was talking about earlier in this passage, is widows who don't have husbands, who don't have children, who are reliant on society to take care of them, right? So this is a social justice issue. So there are literal widows in their midst, right? There are people who actually need attention, who need resource, who need support. Jesus feels like that's a more useful, it's more important to actually deal with the real humans in our midst than to talk about this theory, right? And I feel like that's these guys too. They're like, you know what? We have better things to do with our time, things that are actually relevant, actually impactful, actually live out of our calling. We're going to focus on that and not engage in this debate. And so I feel like that is really the key to the human journey and to the spiritual journey, is the mind becoming clearer and clearer about what we're here to do, keeping its focus on that and not being kind of drawn out of that. So that's one of the passages this Sunday. The other passage is from the book of Haggai, which is a prophet. And in this passage, Haggai is talking to the people of Israel after they have returned from exile and they are rebuilding the temple. So the temple was this structure of worship. It was destroyed when Israel went into exile, and now they're returning and they're building it again. So one of the challenges of building the temple is there are people who have this vision of the temple in their heads, in their minds, right? It's going to be glorious. It's going to be plated with gold. It's going to be encrusted with jewels, whatever. They have a vision, right? And they're so enamored of the vision that they are critical of the actual temple being built. Right? And so I think this is another challenge that we have to look at, especially if you're a creative, is the creatives are inspired by a vision. We have a sense of what we are creating, right? And that sense, that vision is probably perfect. It's really because it's in the spiritual realm. It's not in the physical realm, right? But for there to be any value to that instinct or that intuition, it has to be translated into the physical realm. And it will look different in the physical realm than it looks in our mind, right? And so what happens with creatives is we actually do this to ourselves. we get caught in our own trap of debate, where the mind says, well, that's not good enough. It should be more like this. If we can't do it this way, we shouldn't bother at all. Is it good enough? Is it worthy? Like that whole debate is sort of interrupting the flow of the intuitive process, or the creative process. So in Haggai, he's basically saying, look, this is going to be better than what you're thinking. And the reason it's going to be better is it's going to be real. Even any vision that's in your head or in your mind, in your intuition, is less powerful than an imperfect version of it coming on the physical plane. Because on the physical plane, it's actually moving. It has impact. It can reach out and change the physical world. That's where love happens on the physical plane, right? So even imperfect love, or love that looks different than what we thought it was going to be, is still better than theoretical love, right? So in this image, I think that challenge happens where we're creating something, it's not good enough. The mind says it's not good enough. It wants to have a fight, wants to argue, wants to pull us off the path and have a debate around this, to theorize about it, to judge it, to make other plans. All of those are just stalling tactics, right? Because the mind is nervous. Insecure. The mind is insecure, like this fella. And it's afraid we're going to create something that's not very good. It's going to be judged. It's not going to be worthy, right? And again, the same concept is here. We ask the mind to trust us. Trust your intuition. You are here to do a job. The mind's job is to enact the purpose of the intuition on the planet. That's its job. If it understands its job and it feels connected to it and it trusts the intuition, then it won't get distracted by questions. Is it good enough? What's it going to look like? How are we going to pay for it? What are people going to think about it? All those questions is this challenge point of the mind. And if we can train the mind to recognize the challenge and to walk away from the challenge, the mind doesn't lose energy, lose time, lose focus in this moment. It kind of walks over this threshold. It's ready. It's ready to complete the work we've given it, ready to support the manifestation the intuition has, and new things come on the planet. So that is one version of what I'm going to speak of this Sunday. I hope you like it. Let me know what you think. Bye.